Welcome to Coaching in Session,
where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary,
unlock your potential,
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
Welcome, Dr. Shanea Clancy to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. My feet hit the floor, so I'm blessed and thankful.
Well, I hope they hit the floor running because we're going to have a wonderful conversation today. You are a mindset strategist, amongst other things. You are an author, speaker, and you are going to be helping us understand some of the critical points for transformation in our mind today and someone's life, because we are all essentially the executives of our life. We are the CEO. We are the president. We are the head honcho. We are the charge. And as you said early on, you could be the boss babe, the boss lady, right?
I love it.
You can be all of that in your life. But sometimes people, they take a back seat to who they are, who they can become. And today we're going to be diving into what might be stopping them and then how to do it if they are ready and if they're willing. If you could, in your own words, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and of course, how you help people?
Absolutely. You already gave me this great intro, but honestly, I love to empower people and help them reach their peak of possibility and purpose.
When you talk about peak of possibility, do you find that that's going to be individual to each person you meet, or is it going to be the gambit and anyone can reach a summit?
No, I think that's individualized. There's some people that don't even want to reach a peak, right? So they're cool with where they're at, and that's where they want to go. Then that's fine. But yeah, if there's somebody that wants to really maximize, what they have to offer, their gifts that they've been given, and learn how to navigate that to the peak, absolutely, I think it's individualized.
And as a parent, I know you have some little ones. I have little ones as well. As a parent, I couldn't possibly just be okay with knowing that my kid or my children are just okay being, in their situation, because they have a very comfortable situation where they're not pushing themselves, where they're not challenging themselves. Is it different for the people you love?
Probably would say a little bit more. I wouldn't say harder, but there's that expectation, especially for my kids, because what's my purpose here? I know that one of them is to make sure that I leave a legacy for my children primarily and help them be empowered to be their best version. Like my hope for them is that they are 10 times better than what my husband and I have ever done or could ever do for the world, and just magnify that.
Yeah, it's that expectation aspect there. And I think many people, they struggle with this aspect because if they look at their parents, they might say, I have to be 10 times better than them. I have to do this better than my siblings. And so this factor of the expectation is there. And it could be a good factor, meaning there's a healthy stress there versus I have to be this person that maybe I'm afraid that I can't reach, or maybe in my own eyes or my mind, it's not achievable. And we can talk about the different aspects to how a person can become an individual that has this mindset versus someone who can see a peak and says, I want to climb that. I want to conquer that. Or they can see an expectation and they say, I want to blow through it and be even more than what was expected of me.
I think I love this. This is great. We're gonna have a rich dialogue here, because I think we both, it sounds like to play, quote, devil's advocate, right? And really keep that open mind and explore that. I totally hear what you're saying. And I try to meet my kids where they're at. I have one child that is a little bit more on the sensory side. And so her artistic abilities and ability to craft and just create things out of nowhere is absolutely phenomenal. And, I have another one who she wants to play professional soccer. So, these different strengths and weaknesses, it's really just supporting them with what they want to do. So the expectation piece is that they are willing to do that work.
I can't imagine how many people that grow up with a support system or a healthy support system. We can't even begin to talk about how many families where they will just allow their kids to eat ice cream and be on their iPads all day. They could possibly be in situations where there's not healthy communication, where if something is wrong, I'm going to yell, I'm going to scream. And what happens with the child, and as they grow up, they develop into someone who's afraid to speak out, who's afraid to dare greatly in their life. And I could only imagine how that's going to limit the brain from being intentional, from transforming, from challenging themselves, because we can go past regular childhood and now going into where adults are. And most adults feel stuck. Most adults are going to be in a rat race. Most adults would choose comfort over pain. And so they won't push themselves to failure. They won't push themselves to be more than, their parents or their siblings, or maybe even just their peer groups or their groups that they have incorporated in around them. So they stay in a comfortable area, and they are having a hard time with the person they are versus the person they can become. When someone's coming to you and they're saying, hey, I want to be more, I know I can be more, how do you help them reach that person?
Like when it comes to a client, it's just, doing that kind of landscape analysis of what their goals are. And I'm a big proponent of trauma-informed approaches. And so just in general, nobody wants to be told what to do, right? That's going to automatically put a barrier up, a block, and people are going to shut down because they don't want to hear that. So being trained in both trauma-informed approaches and motivational interviewing, every single person has the answer. They know exactly what they want to do. It's that ambivalence piece that people get hung up on, because almost the fear of making an incorrect decision would be easier pushed on somebody else so that they're the ones that have to take responsibility because they have taken this person's suggestion. And so, well, hey, you were wrong. I wasn't wrong. So I tend to follow the philosophy of asking people, like if I have thought of something and I see an opportunity for a client, I'll be like, are you open for some feedback? Or are you open for a suggestion? And that really gives that person the autonomy to steer the conversation, because they're really in the driver's seat. I'm just the person navigating and might, have a little bit more expertise in one area as opposed to where they do. And so really that's where the collaboration and custom tailored sessions come into play.
Mm. I love the idea of that you ask them if they're open for the feedback versus just giving it to them, just saying, hey, I see you're having a hard time with this. I'm just going to give it to you raw. I'm going to give it to you spicy, right? I remember there was this kindergarten teacher when I was doing my internship, and she was a combination of sugar and spice. And so I developed this idea of sugar and spice in my own coaching business, where she's the sweetest lady. Like if you ever just talk to her and just seen her, she's like the sweetest teacher. But then, oh my goodness, if something was wrong or if the kids weren't doing something right, it was spicy. And they knew. They were like, oh my goodness. And it was so funny because that school had 3 different kindergartens. One was the sugar and spice teacher. One was like the pragmatic, I don't care what we do, we're just going to make it happen every single day. The room was chaotic, and all the teachers will look at that classroom and says, I don't know how she can function, like function and make the class work. And I was able to see hands-on how she was able to do it. And it was a very unique class. And then the other one was just like your regular run-of-the-mill kindergarten class. It just worked, rules, simple behavior techniques. But we have a gambit now, right? We have the outliers, the sugar and spice, the pragmatic teacher. And then we had that person in the middle who was just a status quo, right? And I couldn't imagine where, if as a parent now speaking, where would you put that child? Would you put him in that pragmatic class? Would you put him in the status quo class? Or would you put him in that sugar and spice class? Because this is going to lead to the mindset now. Now we are adults. Do we want to be that pragmatic and be free and to experience the world and to experience failures and to learn from our lessons? Do we want to just follow the path that we were given, the American dream per se, to go to college, to get a job, to find some safety and security, and to keep on progressing? And maybe at 65, we can retire and we can be happy. Then we have that sugar and spice aspect where it doesn't matter what needs to get done. If it needs to get done, it's going to get done. And there's going to be times when I don't want to do things, but I'm going to push myself. I'm going to challenge myself. And that's that spicy aspect. And then there's going to be times when we can relish in bask in the glory. We can sit on the beach and we can look at all of the accomplishments we had. So there's 3 different sectors. And of course, I think this question is going to be unique to each of the, questionees, where if I'm interviewing someone else, they might have a different view to it, where they might say, I'm this type of person, or I believe this, or I believe that. And I don't want you to per se say what you would want to do, more so to say the benefits to a person understanding who they are as a person so they can navigate the next steps.
I love all of that. You had some really, really rich nuggets in there for sure. When it comes to somebody like navigating those next steps, it's just about supporting them, meeting people where they're at. If I were to put an expectation on someone, and I know that I've mentioned that about my children, I think that that's a little different because, like you said, if we just kind of let them run wild, their brain's developing and that's what they're going to learn. They're watching everything, whether we realize that or not. And so just in general, I think it is really beneficial to know like what people's baseline is if they're willing to share that, because like I can observe it, but my interpretation might be completely different than what they intend that outward appearance to be and what their goals are, intrinsically. There's sometimes that disconnect. And I have found it beneficial. It's almost like an oxymoron. When I was talking about motivational interviewing, just a minute ago, it's worth me as a professional to almost make an assumption at some point that is not offensive. Something along the lines of, I see that you're really struggling today. You have a lot of anxiety, da, 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 da. Because what that does is give that person the opportunity to correct me if I'm in left field. And sometimes it's worth being like, you're in left field, because then that person is really going to bring you back to center and be like, well, this is what I meant. And that's why I say that approach tends to work in what I've seen. And also from because MI is that evidence-based practice. So it is legit. And it's just really fascinating to see that people are always afraid. They tend to be afraid to be wrong, right? We don't want to make our clients upset or offend people. But if you do it in a unoffensive way, that's how the dialogue is going to go, because people want to make sure that who they're working with understands what they mean and what they need.
I remember I was just thinking about this the other day, where in college, I was a swim coach. And I remember I was working with a family. There was 2 boys and a girl as the children. And the father came to me after one swim lesson. He goes, Michael, do you think we don't know how to swim? I go, I didn't say that. And he was like, you're too young to realize this, but one day you will when you have children. And he said, there's going to be times when you can be dad or mom, and you could do things that only dad and mom can do. And then there's going to be times when you're going to need some extra help, a teacher, a coach, etc., because they can only do certain things that a teacher can do or a coach can do. And I've found that to be extremely beneficial in my coaching practice and even my parenting today, because I've realized that there's only so much I can do. And this is not saying that I don't do a lot. I do quite a bit. But there are limitations to what I can teach my children, my son, my daughter. I already know my son, he's 4 right now. I already know what's going to happen. He's going to do martial arts. He's going to do something. He's going to come to me, Dad, this is tough. This is hard. And I'm going to say, what did the coach say? And I'm going to lean on that coach to be that other factor that he needs to develop. Now, not everybody has that growing up. They don't have that factor growing up. And so they don't understand the benefits to getting a coach when they're older. Because when I was going through I guess it's not a midlife crisis, because it didn't happen. Then it happened like when I was like in my 20s, where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I got a mentor, when I got a coach, that they really helped me solidify, hey, this is where you are. And I think this is where you want to be. And they were able to give me some direction. And I wanted to talk to you about the benefits of coaching. If you've had any positive moments in your life where coaching has been beneficial or has changed the way you were thinking or moving. And then maybe even if you didn't have one of those, a success story of how maybe a client that you had was able to develop at an exponential amount of speed because they had someone there to support them.
Yeah. So growing up, I was the oldest of 6, and I am a first generation college student. So I remember when I went to go apply for, financial aid, and my mom was just like, I don't know, you got to figure it out. I'm like, okay, I got to find a mentor real quick because I'm about to jack this up. But it really was, for me, the pivotal moment of like reality that, okay, I do need somebody to, not just hand me the information, but really help me come up with a plan and give me information on how I can make the best decision with the information that I was given, right? But I played softball growing up. I played sports. It sounds like you did too, swimming. And if I didn't do sports, I don't know if I would know what teamwork really is. I feel like I was really blessed to be able to be afforded the opportunity to be involved in that, because that just automatically shaped things where I pitched for softball, and my parents didn't know how to pitch, especially, let alone fastball. So I had to lean into the experts. I had to. And same thing. It was like, well, when's practice? What are we doing there? And so I think that foundation was helpful. I've seen time and time again. I feel like I'm old when I say this, that this generation that is up and coming. We alluded to this with a little bit of emotional intelligence, right? There's a lot of those outbursts and a lot of those, hey, I don't know how to deal with this because, like you said, life's busy. Toss a tablet over here, go watch Bluey or, Blippi or something. And it's not really beneficial to any party, especially that relationship, but especially because those things and devices are literally divisive, because they are that dopamine hit. And that is what the kids learn. You can see it. You can see it in the MRIs, any imaging, anything that you do. So then we're practically raising people that are continually going to be looking for some type of dopamine hit, which is an addiction, right? And there's a million of them. And so that's just something that I've been, trying to be more cognizant about. I have an 8, 6, and 4-year-old, and they're at that prime age of like and we've hit summer break. So what does screen time look like? What do your goals look like? Like, we're working on tying shoes. We're working on keeping the rooms clean, hanging, like all those. And you're not getting allowance for it. This is like, you need to know how to do this stuff. And then, we'll go from there. But these basic foundation tools, I think, are absolutely critical. I don't know how you feel about screen time, but I could probably go down the rabbit hole on that and video games. I mean, I grew up on video games. Don't get me wrong. I can't play them now for anything unless somebody hands me Mario Go-Kart, but that's about it.
Well, this is not so much about screen time. I mean, we could definitely get into the conversation and how people become distracted or they look for that dopamine hit, as you were saying. Even as adults today, they would go on their phone, TikTok, YouTube, endless scrolling just to find some level of meaning in their moment. And they find, or if they ever look at the time they spent on an app, like on their phone, it like tracks like what you do. So if you're on YouTube a certain amount of time, it'll tell you how long you've been on this app for. And a lot of people are afraid to look at that timer. They're like, wow, I spent 2 hours today looking at YouTube videos. Like, I could have been using those 2 hours for building a business, going to the gym, talking to my kids, right? Like doing something different, right? So there's a sense of, what's the word? A sense of, I want to say remorse, or it's like they feel bad that they're doing it. And sure, right? We can, play, nitpick here, saying, oh, you shouldn't be spending any time on your phone, or this is the right amount of time. Like you just have to figure out what you want in your life, right? Not everyone is going to want to be a CEO. Not everyone's going to want to run a business. Some people are okay working for somebody else. Maybe their dream is in alignment with theirs, and so it works out for them. Maybe they're just fishermen and they make enough for their family. They get to do all the things that they still want to do. So it's this idea of we can't tell people how to live. Society does a great job at doing that. You need this house. You need a 5-bedroom house. You need at least 4 bathrooms now. You have to have a white picket fence. You need to have a pool in the background, in the backyard. If you have kids, you have to have a jungle gym play set. So it's easy for the status quo to kind of come in. I'm in this neighborhood. They drive this type of car. All of the kids do this. Oh, my kids have to do that too. So we look at that and it's almost like we have to do that. But then again, you can see some parents just totally say, I'm not going to put my kids in front of a screen. We're going out. We're getting some green space. We're going to go on hikes. Hey, it's more power to them. That's their parenting style. And this is going to lead into parenting if we keep going down this road. But this is not where I want to go, because you brought up so many wonderful points about how you grew up and you were a pitcher for softball. And this leads to a certain type of mindset in leadership, right? Because when you're on that mound, you are essentially the ebb and flow of the team, right? You can allow the hits to go through, or you can strike a person out, right? So then it could be a change of size very quickly. And so the team looks at you for saying, okay, help us get through this game. And then, of course, there's an aspect of what you are as a pitcher. Hey, team, back me up if I make a mistake or if they were able to get a hit. So there's two sides there. And I just think about the aspect of leadership in that role, because you are essentially the leader, not saying you were the captain at the time, but you were the person that was creating the pace for the game, right? That leadership aspect, the teamwork aspect. And I know you have a book, the Mountaineering Mindset, where it's talking about that aspect of leadership. It's talking about the aspect of teamwork and communication. Would you say that your past was a clear reflection of something you were trying to portray and represent in your book when you were writing it?
Boy, this book, I would say that it's metaphorically reflective as a trained mountaineer. But the first book I wrote is my testimony. So that is a clear definitive of, who I was and what that transformation looked like. But the mountaineering mindset is focused more as almost like a metaphorical guide to apply mountaineering, because not everybody's a mountaineer. Not everybody even knows what a mountaineer does or entails. And so they're like, wait a minute, that book's not for me. But once you break it down, it's really about that leadership, the teamwork, like the rope that holds the team together, that accountability, the communication piece, the emotional intelligence. I could come up with all these buzzwords that we've got right now, but it really is for every single person, every single industry. It's not focused on one, because you could do mountaineering mindset for execs, mountaineering mindset for athletes, because it's very conducive to the reader in the sense of what they choose to gain from it. It didn't have a specific target audience. And there was a reason I did that.
And the reason was you wanted people to go on a journey themselves?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't want people to feel pigeonholed. And the second part of the title is leading at the peak of possibility. But not every peak is meant to be climbed. Not every summit is made to be made. And it's realizing hey, what tools do I still need, or should I consider if I want to get to this point? And sometimes base camp, the base of the mountain is base camp. And sometimes just making it to base camp, if you're struggling to even get out of bed, base camp is that person's summit for the day. And not every mountain is meant to be climbed. Like sometimes, I know I can say I've taken on, too much and didn't realize I was in burnout mode until somebody called me on it. And I was like, you are 100% correct. I couldn't identify that in myself. I didn't have that insight because I was probably spinning 1,000 miles per hour. And so that's where I think that this really comes into play with meeting everybody at that same space and where they're at. Being able to recognize and see themselves in the reflection of the mountain.
I love this idea or the metaphor of the mountaineering mindset. I remember, or not remember, we can go to that story in a minute. I used to do quite a bit of hiking when I lived in Connecticut. And I said one year, this is probably my first or my second year of teaching. I said, you know what, after school, I'm just going to get in my car and I'm going to travel all over New England for 2 weeks. Went to Massachusetts, went to New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, spent, multiple days camping, right? Where it was a great experience, just me and my dog. And I remember when I did my first hike in Vermont on that trip, I left my map in the car. And this is when the iPhones had just came out. So I said, I got my iPhone, I got my smartphone. I'll be okay, right? So I start going on this trail. And right before you go on the trail, there's a nice billboard there. And it says, beware of bears. I'm like, I'm not worried about bears. I got my pepper spray, I got my bear mace. So I'm good to go, right? I got my bear mace. I got my smartphone. I got my dog. We're good to go. So start hiking. And I realize, oh, wait, I forgot the map. I was like, I'll be okay. I got my smartphone. Just keep going up the hill. I'm in the forest now. There's no cell phone reception over there.
As soon as you said that, I was like, you don't have a reception.
I did not. So I'm probably like 2.5 hours into the hike. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I said, well, let me look at the trail markers. They're not essentially helpful, right? They're just like this minute thing that kind of gives you a reflection of where you are. So I was like, well, I don't have a map. I don't have a smartphone. Just let me keep on going. So I kept on going. And when I got to like this really nice lake, and I was like, okay, let me see if I can do a shortcut to get back to my car, as I was already been hiking about 4 hours. And I was like, there's no shortcut. There's no shortcut to the car. But then I was just thinking, like, if I could do the shortcut, it would be this way. And then I was thinking in my head, if I go the shortcut, it'd probably be bears and I have to use my bear mace. And I was just like, you know what? Let me stop for a minute, because I was making a bunch of mistakes. The sun was setting at this point. I just said, let me sit down and eat a Cliff Bar. So I sat down, ate my Cliff Bar. Some people came by.
Classic hiking snack. Hiking snack.
It's essential. And people were going by. I didn't even think about asking them for help or directions, because I still felt competent in my abilities and I knew what needed to get done. I was just unwilling to admit it. Well, after some dialogue with myself and my dog running around, whimpering, saying, why are we still outside for this long? I said, okay, I guess we have to go back. So I had to go back that trek for, almost 4 hours. And by the time I got to the car, sun was setting. And I had to drive to the next location where I was going to stay on a mountaintop. And we had the most treacherous rainfall that night. Like, it was like, I don't know what type of storm it was, but it was crazy. So I went from thinking I was prepared on this hike and finding out I wasn't prepared, to making mistakes, to realizing that I had to take some steps back, for me going into the next part of my evening where I couldn't even get to fully enjoy it because the rain was keeping me inside my tent. A lot of people can say that my story is a terrible story. I wouldn't want to live that story. Like, you got lost in the forest. You were basically, in your tent, and it was a crazy storm outside. I couldn't imagine living that life. And I say this because there's a lot of people who do hard things. Think of people who run marathons and they're like training like crazy. Swimmers, think of Michael Phelps, how much he swims. It's not easy work to do. We can think of CEOs who run multiple companies and multiple businesses. Heck, we can even talk about parenting. People who don't want to be parents. And they're like, I don't want to be a parent and deal with kids. So there's just this aspect of life now where people get to make a choice. And the choice is going to maybe change as they mature, as they start to see the world maybe different lights. And I couldn't imagine in my 20s if someone told me today I'll be where I am, would I have believed them? So this is to say, is there a way where someone can say that this is for sure a way that I think I would like to live? Is there signs that a person can follow, maybe that you have found for yourself, that says that this is the direction that helped me understand that I think that this would be the life that I would be most happy with, or most proud with, or maybe the most invigorated in living? Being a parent for me, has been a blessing. It's a privilege. It's rewarding. I was just talking to someone the other day. They said parenting is rewarding. And I was like, you know what it is? Right. And then I was looking at an interview of his name is Seth something. He was the guy who did like Pineapple Express, right? Like that guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't want kids at all. With his wife, he goes, I understand kids. I have nieces and nephews. I just don't want them. So for me, I could look at his life and say, well, he's missing out on all the wondrous things of what kids can bring. Of course, chaos and yelling and broken things. Of course, yes, we know they're there. But this is to say that everyone gets to make a choice. And I think sometimes they have decision fatigue. They're like, which is the right choice for me? What do I do? Do I go on the hike? Which path do I take? And they feel overloaded. How can you bring direction to somebody who has so many possibilities for their future?
That is exactly where the motivational interviewing comes in. Are you familiar with motivational interviewing? I know I've referenced it like 3 times now.
I can take a gander, a guess, but please instill us with some wisdom and some delight.
Yeah, so it's motivational interviewing, like I said, is like I have the answer inside me on what's going to fulfill me. My client has the answer of what's going to fulfill them. But just that dialogue of them saying it out loud is more powerful than having it stuck in their head because processing it. And so saying it to somebody, kind of navigating what that looks like. And I'm literally the sounding board. That's what it is. And it's such a beautiful thing to watch in action when you see the aha moment of somebody be like, yeah, this is it. I'm going to make this decision. I would say that sometimes it comes down to that ambivalence factor, and moral injury can play a huge part in that. I know for myself, there's been moments where I'm like, did I make the right decision? Like, did I? Because I'm not really sure. But I've also seen clients think the same thing. My friends, we all have that almost second guess. It's almost like a buyer's remorse, if you will. But I feel like if we don't get that buyer's remorse, like we're probably in the right direction. When it comes to what would be the most fulfilling, I have a higher power. And so I think that just waking up in the morning and then just setting the day with gratitude and listing some of that and just saying, hey, wherever I need to be, whatever time, whatever place, I don't know what that looks like, but give me the words, give me the action when that time comes. And truthfully, I find that the most fulfilling. And I find that those random happenstances are the most beautiful thing because I never know who I might meet along the way and what word in our random conversation can make or break them. And the hope is to encourage them, right? Usually I'm not talking about bad, stuff that would break somebody, but just having that intellectually stimulating conversation. I just met somebody the other day. This will be when we talk about fulfillment. I think this is really insightful. I was at a doctor's appointment and I don't know if anybody's ever had an IV. I'm sure everybody's at least had one. But let me tell you, this place had to stick me like 10 times. Okay. No joke. 10 times. So I had these little gauzes on me, and there was an older gentleman sitting out in the nice, comfy waiting room. And I'm walking out like this, right? I don't want him to see my arms because his wife's back there. I'm like, he's going to be like, oh my gosh, she just went back to the vampires, but I'm a hard stick that day. So I turn around because I've been able to take him off, and I see him looking at his phone, looking up. And I'm pretty outgoing. Like I'll just make some random statement or, I had a couple things sitting on this table and I said, I look like a pack rat today, right? And I didn't really, I just over exaggerated it. And that started the conversation. Don't you know, this man was literally 3 days post-op from a back surgery and drove an hour and a half to take his wife to this appointment. Now you talk about fulfillment and, love and what will you do for people? I mean, that's dedication because I know that man was in pain, but he was able to share this beautiful story with me that he probably doesn't just randomly share with people because his son and daughter-in-law were actually about to be winning a state award that evening for fostering children because they helped this, I can't even imagine, but they helped this beautiful boy when he showed me pictures who was, just maybe a month old, came to them in a full body cast. And they were able to give him a life that he probably never even would have made it to see his first birthday. And he was showing me pictures and he just really lit up. And you could tell in that conversation what really was bringing him joy and fulfillment. And it really put things in a perspective for me. I always try to keep that open mind. And that's another confirmation where I just wake up and I'm like, put me in the right place. Because I can tell you, I did not want to get stuck 10 times. But the reason I went to that appointment was not for the appointment. It was for the divine appointment that I didn't even know was going to take place.
Sometimes I'd like to do things that get people upset like this. I'm going to say something that gets people upset.
Do it. Let's go.
Life has no meaning. But if you pay attention, you can find the meaning in life. And this is this idea where on our journey, we will try things. We might like certain things, maybe more than others. Maybe you try a certain type of food. You're like, this is not what I want. Maybe you go back to my analogy and you're in this kindergarten classroom where you're super pragmatic. You go, this is not what I want. You get this regular classroom and you're like, this is not what I want. You get the sugar and spice classroom. You're like, oh, I kind of like this, right? Where you get to experience life for many of the different flavors that it has to experience. We get to experience the ebb and flows of the ups and downs, the good days, the bad days, the sunny days, the rainy days. All of these things are going to allow us to appreciate what's going on. I remember I was driving just this week to school, and in Texas, for some reason, the rain just comes up out of nowhere. It's like no forecast, no nothing, just rain. It's rain all of a sudden. Where did that rain cloud come from? And I remember I was just driving with just one single rain cloud somewhere in the sky. The sky looked blue and the rain was hitting the car. And I was like, I don't want to roll up my windows. I'm just going to allow the rain to come into the car. I was like, if I get flooded, I get flooded. And as the rain was hitting my arm, I remember that there's a famous quote to him in a movie or just in life that some people will feel the rain and some people get wet. And we get to make that choice every single day. Do we get to feel life? Do we get to experience it? Do we get to dedicate to that? Or do we just move through it where every day is just another day, every moment is just another moment. There's nothing going on. We dread Mondays. We long for Fridays. We turn up on Saturdays, and Sundays are the day we have remorse because we know the weekend is ending. And there's just so many people who are living in this 7-day cycle. They're living in this time constraint where they feel as if they have missed their window, the boat has sailed away, that they're no longer able to go on a journey or partake into something. How many people do you know will say that I'm too old for this? Oh, I can't do that anymore, right? Maybe if I was younger, 10 years younger, I can try that. And this is all to say that there are many limits that people have given themselves. And our conversation today, if they look in between all of the crevices of what we were saying in between the lines, there's a possibility for you today that you don't have to climb every peak that's in front of you. You get to choose. And possibly you say that, I want to climb this peak. Maybe you don't know how to yet. But that's when you start to investigate, you start to gather information. You say, who can help me climb this peak? Who do I want to accompany me to this top? Think about it. If you ever reached a goal, or if you have a goal in your mind, maybe you graduate with your doctorate, right? Who do you want around you? Or your mom, your dad, your dog? Like who would you want to celebrate with? And just think of that idea. And then get a coach, get a guide, get a mentor that are going to be the facilitators to that goal and to keep on dreaming all the way through. But we need action with those dreams, because if we just dream, which most people do, they dream, they wish, they hope, they wait. And today I'm telling people that you don't have to just simply wait for the perfect moment, wait for the opportune time. We can grasp life for what it is, possibilities. We can long for, a moment that might take years to reach. But when you reach it, I mean, it's life-changing. I remember when my son was born, it was something, I knew I always wanted to be a parent. I was like, I want to be a parent. And when he was born, it was just like a life-changing moment. And, the same thing is true for college. I was the first one out of my, siblings to graduate college. And it was a moment for my mom more so than me, because she wanted one of her children to go off to college. And I was the only one who did it. And you do these little things, sometimes for yourself, sometimes for someone else. But if you pay attention, you can see their smile. You can see their energy. And life is filled with all of these amazing opportunities for us. And sometimes we're going to say, we don't want to show up for life today. Sometimes we, maybe tomorrow when I'm ready or when I have more energy, I'm just tired today. And I can't tell you how many people are just tired. They're sick and tired. They're sick and tired of waiting. They're sick and tired of themselves. And of course, we can give ourselves some comfort in saying that I'm not alone, right? But I'm more of a sugar and spice type of coach, where some days you're not going to feel like getting up, but you have to. Some days your kids are going to say that they want some fruit snacks, and you are literally at your wit's end. You're like, oh my God, like you're over here worried about fruit snacks, and I'm over here worried about the mortgage or something, right? Like you have a stress over you, but you don't have to keep it. You can relinquish it. You can do things that are going to give you better opportunities in your life. And I just find that there are so many possibilities. There's so many experiences in life that are waiting for you. And life will teach you or try to teach you again and again and again. And it's up to you to pay attention. And sometimes people, they're stubborn. I'm stubborn too. And they are going to get burned before they even take the lesson. Again, I'm the type of person who has to experience it. My mom could say, don't touch a stove. Guess what? I'm going to touch a stove, right? I've learned to get burned, but I have also learned to lay my ego aside and say that I need some help today. It wasn't an easy process along the way. I had to give up, versions of myself that weren't helpful, versions that maybe I had created because I felt at the time they were protecting me. And I can't tell you how many people they create this identity that they think is their protector, and it's often their hindrance. So if you can think of something in your life that you would like to try today, if you think of an experience that you want to live and you find that maybe you are the obstacle, that's when you need to jump. You need to say, I need some help. I need some assistance. I need someone who can help me through these, mountain paths, because you can get lost on the mountain peak very quickly. I remember when I came to Texas for the first time, I got lost in Austin, just going through the preservation. It's not even that big. I was like, how'd I get lost here? And I'm climbing through mountains over in New England. I just wasn't equipped for this environment until I got people around me that were equipped. So today is the day where we say that we have an opportunity to equip ourselves with knowledge, with wisdom, with people who are going to be able to support us and care for us. And I know what you do, Shanea, is basically helping people with this aspect, guiding them through it. being that support system, right? Of course, there's going to be expectations on both parties, but the way you do it seems to empower people to look at everything that's possible in their life. And if they choose to go on that journey, you're there 100% of the way, I'm sure, being the biggest cheerleader in their life. And this is all to say that our conversation, it led to so many highs and lows and to so many mindsets that I know so many people, now they're curious. Now they're possibly invigorated with more than just hope, maybe a little bit of action now. And so with that feeling that they're feeling, I would love to get some final words, some final thoughts from you. And then if you could, can you please tell everyone how they can find you, reach out, and begin working with you?
Absolutely. You had so many nuggets again. Look, your storytelling is brilliant. I just want to, remind your audience of that. So that's incredible. I just think that, there's so many beautiful things to experience, like you said, in life. But showing up is the hardest thing, without a doubt. I have been, there's so many networking events or organizations that I have been involved in over the years. And if there is something or somewhere I need to be, and I start to get this almost anxiety feeling of I can't do this, right? I shouldn't go. You know what I mean? You have this Jekyll and Hyde, I do conversation. It doesn't happen every time. It historically happens when I really need to be there and I'm under some kind of attack. And when I get myself together, usually it's my husband that will be like, you should probably go to this one, right? Because I will say it myself. When I have that feeling, I know it all too well. And I will say, I know I need to be there. Somebody needs to hear something. I need to meet somebody. Somebody needs to meet me. There's something. And usually I'm flying in hot because I had to convince myself for long enough that, I make it to that event probably just on time. But every single time, without a doubt, there is some reason that I needed to be there. And the aha moment goes off every single time. So I've almost gotten to this point of challenging whatever likes to put me in that situation because I can't take accountability for that one. It's not me that's doing it to myself, right? I'm a very accountable person, but that is out of my realm. I almost welcome it because I know that wherever I'm going next, right before that happens, it's going to be good. Something is going to happen. It doesn't have to be life-changing, but it might be something small enough that it's life-changing for somebody else. And I just think that's absolutely incredible. So, I was just going to say that it's just beautiful working with people, connecting. The connection piece is what matters most. If I can't serve somebody, I'm more than happy to, have connections and refer to other people. But it comes down to that connection piece, that accountability piece. And I love to be found in the streets of social media, like I'm sure most of us do. But just my website, I'm sure that you'll drop that in the notes. My name is pretty tricky to spell, so I'm not going to belabor that and spell it out for your audience, but on, LinkedIn for sure, social medias. And I would love to just connect if any of this resonated with you. I am without a doubt sure that your audience is incredible because you have fostered that growth with probably, I'm going to assume, some pretty awesome rock stars.
Yeah, we had quite a bit of episodes at this point in time, and I can say that we've had many nuggets of gold along the way. And I do my best to make sure that the guests that come on, they have nuggets to give, whether it be something that's easy to digest or something where they have to really dig deep and say, all right, this is something I have to face. Sometimes it's going to be the hard ways, and then some days it could be the easy way. I know where if a person doesn't have a reason to move, why should they move? How many people they wait for trauma to tell them to move? Too many, right? So we know that You don't have to wait for a hard point in your life to make some changes. If you're not exactly, satisfied where you are right now, move. You're not a tree. But yet many people, they feel as if they're stuck. And, I always like to say something, toward the end, where if you can give yourself an affirmation, what would that affirmation be? What would your affirmation be for people to walk away with today?
Beyond a shadow of a doubt, I stand by your past does not have to define you. You hold the deck of cards. You're either going to fold or you're going to keep going forward. That's my motto. And I fully, heartedly believe that for others.
And there it is. So right now we have the hand that we were dealt, maybe a losing hand, but it doesn't mean we can't play poker and say, hey, world, this is what I got. And if you can, make it through one day, the next day, you're going to realize that it's not so bad. I understand some days might feel treacherous, mountainous. It was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that day had occurred. But then you become stronger because of it. The hardest days have helped me become stronger. And I hope this conversation has helped you become stronger in some way, braver in some way, maybe even more, I don't want to say radical because radical can be misconstrued, but more joyous to fulfill the fulfillments that you're looking for. I think it's a better way than to say radical, right? But other than that, I loved our conversation, Shanea. It was a series of ups and downs. We don't even know we were going to get. We were just saying, okay, we'll see what happens when we hit record. And I knew we were going to have a fun conversation, one where people can come in, they can tune in, and they can say, wow, this is real, right? This is life. And this is what life is. You don't know what you're going to expect. It's very similar to how when you were at the doctor, you got stuck 10 times with the IV and you come out, you're like, man, I'm a pack rat or whatever. It's like, you don't know what you're going to get with that story. And I can't tell you how many stories I have where I didn't want to go someplace, or if I had to do something, there was some meaning or some reason behind that visit or that destination. So in life, you can find that meaning. You can find that thing that's going to make you say, aha, this is what was meant for me. Maybe for the day, maybe for the week, maybe for the year, maybe for a lifetime. If you need help, if you need support, Dr. Shanea, I'm sure it's going to be able to help you along that way. Thank you so much for coming on. And of course, keep on with the amazing work that you're doing and just being that beacon for people.
You too. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.